Welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I am your Loremaster, here today to bring you part 2 of our premier lore dump on the World of Golarion. We just finished covering the generals on time, so let's go with space. Today we'll be taking a general look at the various continents of Golarion. Specifics of each region will probably be fit for their own video, so let's just focus on the 101, shall we? However, before we get in with a closer look, since we are doing a general location video, let's start all the way back with the planet to begin with. Golarion is the third of 11 planets rotating around the Sun. Similar to our Earth, Golarion is the sweet spot where life can easily thrive upon the planet's surface. In fact, of all the planets in the solar system, all of which have life on them, by the way, material for another video, Golarion is home to the largest population of, and the most diverse collection of, intelligent life. Finally, astronomers on Golarion refer to the planet as the Child, but astronomers on other worlds refer to it as the Cage, referring to the fact that the planet was created to imprison the clipped-off god of destruction, Rovagug. Now, before we go down to the surface, let's get started with today's first side tangent, the parts of the show where the topic is forgotten and the points don't matter. Now let's talk about the place which has a surprisingly high concentration of tiefling, the moon. Golarian's moon, sometimes referred to the ancient civilizations as Somal, is home to a dark patch called the Moon Scar. This area is actually, according to the book Lords of Discord, the guide to all things demonic, a forest created from an invasion of abyssal forces. And the world wound is not the only injury that has been left to fester. The area is populated by succubi and half-succubi, who sometimes come down to Earth to corrupt human souls, / create more half-succubi. Now going back to the surface, let's start with someplace we know well, the Inner Sea region. Now, Paizo has made it so many of the regions are not dissimilar to those on Earth, and so I'm going to reference back to Earth culture and geography throughout this, and likely other videos. In this case, the Inner Sea region is analogous to our Mediterranean region, and, like the Mediterranean region, is made up of Europe and Northern Africa. So, too, is the Inner Sea region made up of two main continents, Avestan and Northern Garund. Avestan is what one expects from the fantasy genre, inspired by medieval Europe with a heavy dose of magic. And since we do spend a lot of time here, let us at least list the various human entities briefly as well. Won't do it for every region, especially since most regions we don't have a full list for, but not all the humans fully carry blood from this region, so special circumstances. Native to the region are 4 ethnicities: the Kelid, the Shiotar, the Shoanti, the Orphan, and the Virisian. 2 other ethnicities, the Taldan and their successors, the Chilaxian people, claim to have blood of the Aslanteans, the people of the Aslan continent. More on that one later, flowing through their veins. A final one, Yadwiga, is one ethnicity of those Golarian descended from the witch Baba Yaga. As for where Baba Yaga is from, I might have mentioned in my video on the eras. Should have came right out before though this one did. Similarly, the upper third of the Garund continent is also considered part of the region and heavily based off African civilizations. For the most part, impossible kingdoms are named as such for a reason. But it has major trade routes that travel along the northern part of the continent, a dense rainforest to the west, and 3 different dark-skinned ancestries. The most commonly seen Garundi, the diverse but usually grouped together Moragni, and the people without a homeland because it's currently underwater, the Lair. Gonna be stumbling a lot with names this video. It's always names and numbers. Now, this is also time to mention something important about this episode. The common ancestries. I don't have to tell you about the rarity of ancestries. In 2e Paizo tells you all about that explicitly for the Inner Sea region. You see, in the 1e book Inner Sea Races, a book that does deep dives of many of what was in 1e races of the area. However, there is one section where it refers to the most populous races in other regions. They're equivalent to elves, dwarves, gnomes, etc. If I am going to cover the regions right, I should probably mention these as well. Besides humans. Humans are on our list except one. Two things humans are known for, being vanilla and being everywhere. Next, the other continent we truly have complete information on, TNZ, also known as the Dragon Kingdoms. This region, as you probably guessed, takes inspiration from East Asia and Southeast Asian cultures. Specifically, we have various continent-wide kingdoms of the Tian Shu representing China. There's also the Tian Min of Minkai and the Forest of Spirits representing Japanese culture. The Mongolian-inspired Tian Lan of the region of Hangul. Tian Sing of Minata representing the cultures of Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, as well as references to Korean and other southeastern cultures represented by the Tian Dan, Tian Tang, and Tian Huan. As mentioned, the major power of the continent has historically been the Tian Shu people, who have had 3 separate kingdoms ruling over the continent, the first of which, Yingqi, ruled almost 5,000 years starting in, oh god, the numbers are back, negative 2,499 AR. Now, when it comes to the common ancestors in the region, Tian is listed with a total of 7+ humans. Outside of 2 native species, Inner Sea adventurers might most likely recognize the Kitsune and the Tengu, and the 2 listed as common due to having their own thriving kingdoms, the Aasimar and the Hobgoblins. There are 3 other native staples. The Nagaji, the reptilian species who function as the hands of the Naga overlords. Need to slow down and actually pronounce words. The Samsarans, blue-skinned humanoids who reincarnate after they die, retaining most of their previous memories. And the Reiyang, shadow plane natives who have taken up residence in any shadow they can find. I actually talked about the Wei Yang when I went through the different ages of Golarion. Check out that video. Now for the next region, slight correction. I just finished saying Tianxi was the region we knew the most about, besides the Inner Sea region. That is partially true, but there is one we have had adventurers travel through it in its entirety. That is the crown of the world. If you look at the actual map, this is where the map would go if I have an actual decent setup. One would notice that both Avestan and Tianxi are connected to each other through a landmass covering Golarian's North Pole. This is the frozen crown of the world, and it does serve as a major trade route between the 2 previous mentioned continents. Even if its vast expanse of tundra is not the safest place. As for what is there, well, it's a frozen wasteland. There are no countries. The common races are listed as humans, elves, and dwarves. And in the book The Hungry Storm, part of the Jade Region Adventure Path, players are basically given an open map of the region told not to die. Not much to see, really. Or so it would seem. You see, ancient ruins have been found encased in the tundra. These ruins are of an unknown civilization, and date back to before many of the oldest empires we know of. While there is not much to see there in the present, the Bitter North still has some secrets buried away. Speaking of between the Inner Sea region and Tianxi, There is also the ocean path, with the continent of Cameron right between the two. Kajmaran, forgot the S the first time, roughly translates to the cultures of the Middle East. And by Middle East, I mean all of it, from the non-metropolitan Russian down to India. We have heard various things about Eobaria, Iblidos, and Chaldae, but the two big nations we know of are Kelesh and Vudra. The Padisha Empire of Kelesh is a powerful empire who rules a good chunk of the continent. It is roughly comparable to four caliphates that ruled the Middle East from the founding of Islam to the end of World War I. We have yet to see an exact map of their area, but we have heard much of their history of Taldan and the inroads they have made into the inner sea region. One we have seen a map for, relatively recently in fact, is Vudra, the land of 1,000 gods, all land of all things based on Indian folklore. This country is made up of 100 different kingdoms, which answer to a central authority of the Maharaja. And as someone interested in both gods and psychic / occult magic, close to the top places I want more information on. Either way, common races are Junikin, mostly Kilish, and Vishkanya and Vanara, more native to Vudra. Which leads us to not one, but two of today's side tangents. First off, the origins of the Vishkanya. Vishkanya, or poison maidens, are legends that date back to the early Indian empires. They were said to... one moment, YouTube. How much can I talk about this without getting the... Let's do it this way. In legend, it is said that they were women whose bodily fluids were poisonous, and they would assassinate men with the use of this bodily fluid, a warning to royals who couldn't keep it in their pants. In the original legend, from what I can tell, there was vagueness on whether it was just the one fluid that was poisonous or all of them, though Paizo has taken the path of making just the blood poisonous. Calistria be praised. And side tangent 3, the Vanara. The Vanara are the people of the forest from the Ramayana, one of the oldest epics in existence, even older than the Iliad and the Odyssey. They were a group of people who assisted the hero Rama fight against the Rakshasa Ravana. Originally they were just people, but artwork more and more began depicting them as monkey people, and therefore how they usually are thought of, and how they appear in Pathfinder. And yes, they were originally not monkey people. I feel the need to stress this, as there are people who try to use their existence in Ramayana to try to prove the existence of Bigfoot and the Yeti. Yeah, when you want to know as much as possible, you go to strange places. Now we move to a continent far off on the other side of the globe, Arcadia. Arcadia's continent we actually do not know much about. In the ancient past, the Aslanteans tried attacking and conquering the area, which led to mistrust of outsiders, which includes most of the adventurers we have been. Considering this is our American equivalent, and looking at our own history, probably for the best. We have seen enough snippets to see Mesoamerican influence on cultures and religion, but we have yet to see the entire continent as a whole. We have seen the parts of the coast, however, due to the allowance of some colonies. Often explorers sailed west and found the land in negative 473 AR. While the locals tried to force them to leave, they managed to keep their foothold better than our own world's Vidland, allowing to establish their retirement home for old Vikings, Valhall. More recently, Chilaxian and Andorran explorers have also set up colonies on the coast, which led to the Sagada Protocol, Basically the allowance of these small colonies by the locals, as long as the colonies follow certain rules. Again, Chiliax is one of them, so we will have to see how long this policy works in the future. As for Ancestries, there was a decent population of halflings, skinwalkers, which are now part of beastkin heritage in 2e, and weirwoods, constructs who have gained independence and kept their way of producing more, mostly a secret. Now circling back, let's return to Gudra, specifically Garund. This is a Pathfinder video, not a Pokemon video. Specifically, the southern part of the continent. Similar to the north, one of the most notable features is the Maragni Expanse, which continues down to the west coast. The races known to be common in this area are elves, the catfolk whose home city is found in the south, everyone's favorite Gribbly, and Aasimar. Aasimar are an interesting addition, as, of the little we know of the region, one is that there are two major nations that are known for worship of ephemeral lords, including the largest city in the region, Holomog. Built by survivors during the Age of Darkness, with the help of a minor ephemeral lord, this country is known for many things, two of which I'm going to mention today. The Tower of the 94, a massive shrine dedicated to a number of ephemeral lords. No prize for guessing how many. The second is, due to close proximity to the land to the Maelstrom, the country hosts a large population of Gonzi. Speaking of Holomog, however, this leads to the last side tangent of the day, Aasimar or Gonzi. As mentioned earlier, the Inner Sea Races book lists Aasimar as one of the common races of southern Garund. However, this book came out before the introduction of Aphorites, Duskwalkers, and Gonzi. In fact, our first information about Holomog also gave us our first mention of the Gonzi. And as mentioned, Holomog is a town protected by an ephemeral lord, with temples dedicated to 100 ephemeral lords, which is stated to have a major Gonzi population. In fact, there's a few more recent additions that say how frequently found Gonzi are in southern Garund compared to the rest of the world, with no specific mention of Aasimar. Though we do not have confirmation yet, these facts, along with the facts Aasimar already have a kingdom in Tianxi, which is also referenced a lot, it is possible Holomog was originally conceived as a city for Aasimar, before becoming one instead for Gonzi. Along the same line, there is a decent possibility that the fact that Aasimar are one of the common races of southern Garund has been retconned to give Gonzi some love. Guess we'll have to wait to get more information on the region, won't we? Now onto the continent we know least about. Surusan is the Golarian equivalent of Australia, a large continent at the end of a large island chain. As for similarities, honestly, we don't know. We have descriptions of how the landmarks which appear on the island, but these are all ancient accounts. No modern expedition has returned alive. This is further complicated by the fact that anyone who sails near the island loses memory of what they saw. So while we have descriptions of jungles, plains, deserts, a group of people who have come from there, and reports that marsupials live there, we honestly have nothing. Finally, we have Aslan, the home of the great ancient civilization. As you probably know, the continent was sunk by an event known as Earthfall. While adventurers will often hear whispers of Aslantean greatness, right now all you'll find in the continent are Ozzenketi, human, merfolk, and aquatic elves. Like exploring those ruins. And that is basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed these two introduction videos. Now that we have covered most of the basics, feel free to recommend other topics you might be interested in potentially learning about. As much as I like Ancestries, I think mechanics videos give you a good enough touch on the basics that I think I want to at least start focusing elsewhere. Small mention in side tangents, of course, but as for the main focus, well, just ask and we'll see what I go with. Also, good news! I know how to make basic thumbnails. So at the very least, you're not just looking at my face at the start of videos. It's you staring at my face with some text. Either way, come back next week, where I will cover one of the gods of Golarion, or at least what he allows us to know.